The Book of Remembrance, Chapter 14, Tablet of Bedal, the story of Enoch and Edney. An account of Enoch and Edney receiving instruction for dividing the earth and establishing the independence of truth in a decisive battle in the first great war in heaven. And it came to pass that when the Lord ended his instructions to Enoch and the listeners regarding the division of days, the listeners were filled with the presence of the Ruach HaKodesh, of the Holy Spirit, and they were struck with wonder and gratitude at the blessings that were bestowed upon the righteous people of Moin. And they were filled with questions, and they spoke with Matzah the Lamb for the rest of that day concerning the manner in which their people could use their holy days to comfort. And Hagi said, verse 2, and they were very intent in their conversations, for they spoke together as ones who knew of the importance of the task which lay before them. And they saw the division of days to be the means whereby the people of the holy city could be rich companions to Enoch, and by their new reckoning of days they could walk with him in the way to continuously comfort him, according to the tenderness of his heart. Verse 3, and it came to pass that in the midst of these discussions Matzah slipped quietly away unnoticed, and Enoch and the listeners continued to confer together into the night, and they remained where they were for some days, pondering the richness of the treasures of the division of days, and by the power and urgency of the Spirit that was in them. Page 456. They could discern the value of the holy days to both their people and to Enoch. Verse 4, and I saw that these listeners who walked with the Lord almost daily were present at the birth of Adahiel in the lives of men and in the midst of creation. For before this day there was no concept of measuring the passage of time. Neither was there any idea of counting numbers, nor was there any thought nor practice of a people sharing specific days of the year in common, and the prospect of sharing together the memorial days of Enoch in order to comfort him was exciting to them, and the anticipation of it filled their souls with joy. Verse 5, and one among them was a listener who was called Akoni, and she reported that it had been prophesied at her birth that it was part of her vision to influence, to see that the Lord had companions, and this woman went out alone after the discussions to praise Matzah for his kindness in revealing the division of days to them. And when these things became known, the people began to teach one another and the children how to count, and they began to measure the weeks of the seasons. And it came to pass that as I looked with Urim, I saw a curious thing among the righteous, for they were not inclined to hide the knowledge of these things from the wicked. And further, they supposed that all of that which was the foundation of the days of holiness came from the first great sevening among the righteous, which was a matter wholly ignored by the wicked. Page 457, verse 7. And they also knew that all the holiness of their memorable days arose out of the day of the measure of Milo, wherein the lives of the righteous first began to be given to Matzah the Lamb, and the wicked have no inclination whatsoever to submit themselves either a little or without reserve to their vengeful God, but rather they would only act in his name after measuring out for themselves honour and rich rewards and an acceptable standing before their fellows. And they would only speak openly of their God and think to be seen to act together with him if it brought them something desirable. And I also saw, verse 8, this day of instruction concerning the division of days occurred 26 days before the day of the celebration of Ikar, which was to be their first holy day to celebrate upon establishing the division of days among their people. And the listeners returned home and began immediately to instruct all the people in these matters after staying 4 days in the place of instruction. And it was in this way that the people of the Most High spent 22 days in preparation to begin to understand the celebration of their very first holy day together. However, they were not aware of these numbers. Also, you can link this to page 524. Verse 10, and it came to pass that after all was ready, they called all the people together and instructed them, and they departed to their various settlements to observe the day, the celebration of Ikar. Wow. Page 458. And after these things, the people of Moing all conferred together, and they determined together with one mind how they would begin to set in place and observe to keep fully the division of days. And in all these things a son of Ada was chief spokesperson for the listeners. And I saw that when the multitude was assembled and receiving instruction, the son of Ada, who was called Cain, began to recite to them that all the holy days of the division of days began with the holiness of the day of measure of Milo. And he said that all of the power of the rest of the holy days of the year that are to be shared with Enoch began with the example of Milo in the giving of her life to Motzah. And in the midst of those who were assembled, Milo was listening, and she fell to the earth, being overcome with joy that she could be the means of blessing her lovely one. And also the people of Marween and Amizyaddad carried her home, and all the children called her blessed, and they ministered to her until she regained her strength. And this woman, who was the mother of many children, walked with Motzah the lamb, and the two of them rejoiced together. And I saw that the people of Marween henceforth consider her to be the elder mother of the division of days, and it was known by them that her spirit would someday dwell in the soul of Adiahayel, and the two of them would inhabit the light of Enoch together. And it came to pass that after all these events, the people prepared diligently for their first holy day by making vessels for Yahuwah to eat upon when he ate with them. And the first holy day to be celebrated by the righteous, page 459, thus began with the joyous anticipation of the people being a comfort to their dearly beloved Enoch, and he worried that his children came under the distress of want. Verse 15, and all of the people rejoiced, and they called it the celebration of Ikar, and it was essential that the righteous have great determination to see that all was done in order and with clarity. And it came to pass that because of these things, a very great thing began to transpire in the land of Mawin, for every man, woman, and child found that they could now know and feel both the joys and burdens of Enoch, who is their Father in heaven, and they could participate in acts of companionship to comfort him. And it can be seen that because of these things, all the people of Mawin, starting at an early age, began to grow very close to Enoch, with much tenderness of heart towards him, and was known in all their lives. And Enoch knew that he was fully loved by them, and that is not all. For the nature of his personality was before them in all of their daily walk, and the power of it influenced their behaviour toward one another, and loving kindness abounded. Now understand that the righteous people of the city of Mawin thought of the nature of Enoch, who created all things, to be the exactly same as one would think of a little child, and they considered him to be wholly innocent and absent of any rancour, and they knew that he had no ill will even for the very wicked. Verse 19, and they saw Enoch to be holy and pure of heart and utterly without the capacity to bring harm, and the righteous loved him with all the gentle instincts that are given to mankind, which causes them to be drawn in their souls to love the helpless baby things of the earth. Verse 20, and compassion towards Enoch abounded, and to them Enoch was the ultimate being of purity and the infinite wellspring of tender loving kindness. And they sorrowed at any thought of his disappointment or despair, and there could never be a people who would know greater joy in the comfort and well-being of their Father. And it came to pass that it was in this way and by these means that the righteous of the earth were brought to be joined with the forces that brought into being all creation. And Mawin prospered and flourished, and the souls of the righteous were enlarged, and the wicked of Sennaciol were perplexed at the strength of the righteous, and the earth was known to tremble with joy and gladness in her delight, to be whole in her soul once again, and the rocks in Eden were comforted, as they beheld the children of men joining together with the holy hosts of the Shamayim of the heaven, to be strengthened in their salvation. And thus the division of days, verse 23, was a comfort to all the hosts of Ebedal. Page 461 now. And all the division of days came to be established before those who were born near the time of the day of instruction were grown to be married. Verse 24. And it came to pass in the course of time the wicked learned the division of days that was observed among the righteous, and they heard tales of the substance of it, because the righteous could not anticipate evil. And while many among the wicked mocked, the men of the secret society of Seiko listened with high interest, and they made their plans according to the evil whisperings of the spirit of Motza to them. And the prophecy given to Enoch that the wicked would not abide by the holiness of the division of days began to manifest itself, and the far-reaching effects of the wicked in this manner will yet come to be revealed. And it came to pass that Enoch and Edney, after having the great satisfaction of being part of these joys, took their journey eastward, with the intent to go to rest a while in the borders of the land of the country of the people of Milo. And they travelled together. They approached to ascend up into the high country, and the mountain of the east lay before them in the misty heights, and the broad plains of the land of Anak were to be seen to their west, and they were able to go together in their old age because their duties towards their children were ended, and they went hand in hand, and their joy and their rich companionship was full, and the serenity of the presence of the Ruach HaKodesh went with them. And as they looked to begin their ascent, they were on a high plain. Page 462. Before great cliffs to rock to their east, and they turned themselves to cast their eyes over all the regions of Marween that surrounded the Aral Sea, and they could see the light of the setting sun dancing upon the waters of the sea, and they thought upon their joys in the establishment of Marween, and upon the greatness of all that which Yahuwah had accomplished for the righteous. And as they pondered their happiness in these things, the stillness was broken by a cry, and the sound of it seemed to come from everywhere, and it pierced them to the very centre. And they looked about to see from whence it came, and the sound of the cry resounded off the high rocks of the east, and they both were filled with alarm, and they listened intently, and they both prayed and asked the Lord to help them to understand the words and the meaning of the cry. And it came again. They both knew it was the earth who cried and said, my soul, my soul. And they both heard and understood the words. And Enoch and Edney wept together, and they bowed themselves to the earth, and they put their hands upon it to bring it comfort. And while they were on their knees, they cried out to the Lord for help, to understand the meaning of the continuing cries of the earth. And it came to pass, as they did so, a figure from the south could be seen approaching. Page 463. We're in chapter 14. And it was Motzah the lamb, and he walked as though he was burdened. And Enoch and Edney spoke to one another to wonder if he could hear the cries of the earth. And as the Lord approached, they sat quietly and waited to see what he would do. And the Lord approached, and he sat down before them, and he greeted them in kindness. And he spoke, and he said, the earth cries, for she despairs of the prospect of that which may befall her lovely ones. For there is a great calamity waiting to come to the creations of my Father. And the wicked are now approaching to discover all that is needed for them to establish themselves in such a way as to destroy all the intentions of my Father in creation. And Motzah the decadent is instructing them day by day, so that they may establish their own decrees of creation, and hereby separate themselves from being dependent upon the righteous in the midst of creation. And they intend to utilize the element of wickedness among themselves to establish their lies, to have precedence over the truth of my Father. Verse 34. And upon hearing these things, Edney took the hand of Motzah in both her hands, and she said, Lord, what must we do? And the Lord gained strength from her, and he said, the two of you must see to it that the righteous become prepared and informed, so that they can perform a task for me. Verse 35, page 464. And Enoch replied, say on, Lord. And the Lord lifted his head as if he had found renewed determination, and he began to speak. And he said, I shall instruct you 4 times as you walk in the way, in order to prepare you for a task. And before 4 years pass, you must abide in your strength to accomplish the matter. Verse 36. So I will give you your first instruction at this time. You have not known it, my children, but a fierce battle is transpiring on the earth and in heaven, and it shall be known by your posterity as the great war in heaven. Verse 37, and there are huge forces of righteousness assembled, and at the ready to aid in the cause of Enoch is said, and there are strong and determined forces of wickedness, also at the ready to subdue all that is holy, and all of the inhabitants of the earth, and even all of the living souls in creation, are to be affected by that which may come of this war. Verse 38, and now understand that at this time both the righteous and the wicked are set on a course to be able to establish firmly who is the object of creation, and it shall be either mankind or the Dekardashai. Verse 39, and we have arrived at this place because the nature of my Father is such that his gift of agency rests to be immovable in all the far reaches of his abode. There ends